Hello guys, how are you? I hope that you are doing well and it has been well with you from where you are getting my voice. Welcome to Stu and Daniel's Corner. This is the YouTube channel where we discuss our issues. We discuss many things from Christianity to social issues and to anything which is happening around. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you. For those who have not subscribed to the channel, let it be the first thing for you to do before even you get to hear what we are going to discuss. So this evening, it could be morning, it could be another time in your place. I want to just introduce something which has become a debate in Kenya, and this is to do with GMOs. Over the past, the president announced that Kenya will now have to take the GMO way, but it has received a lot of criticism from the general public and also from some leaders. So I thought it is good here for me to say something about it and try to shed some light about GMOs and what's happening and where they come from, because I realize based on the discussions which we hear from our leaders, they are very superficial and they seem not to understand what we talk about when we speak about GMOs. First of all, I want to bring some background information which is very necessary for us to appreciate some of the advancement which have happened in agriculture in the recent. So the history of agriculture is very key for us to be able to discuss this topic. We know very well from history that agriculture started around Middle East, and the domestication just happened some time later, and that dates the days or the era when agriculture started. So the original man in the beginning was an hunter gatherer. That's the lifestyles which our ancestors used to live. They used to eat fruits and roots and animals from the field or from the jungle. But as the population continued to increase, it was not possible for our species to have enough food and meat from the world. So what happened? They decided to cultivate, to do what we call active food production. And then over years, some scientists have been studying what has happened to these crops over a long time of cultivation. And some things could be observed directly, because you realize that in almost all varieties of the crops we have their wound relatives which either escaped cultivation or remained in the forest when their relatives were brought under cultivation. So when they compare these two kinds of plants, they find that there are differences which have happened to the crops over such long time. So in the past, they were just physically comparing which differences have happened. One key thing or difference which has happened is that ability to reproduce alone. Like when you check the land races in maize, in the forests, in some grasses, they are able to thrive by themselves without human intervention. But for the domesticated crops and even some animals, they cannot thrive without the assistance of man. Yeah, in some cases you found that before domestication of these crops, when they produce seeds, they used it to shed them. so that they could spread and germinate, and maybe being taken to a relative far place for them to be able to persist. But for the domesticated crops, those kind of changes uh, disappeared, such that when the seeds even are ripe, the grain cannot be released. It is waste for men of humans to come and harvest and enable them to reproduce. So that's what has happened in the past. Yeah. But now, yeah, in the history of agriculture, you find that there is a direct correlation. When the technology is increasing, or it is advancing, agriculture is also advancing. Like when you check what happened during the Industrial Revolution in Europe, when the discovery of machineries, and even in the chemistry, when they meant some chemicals, biochemicals, and even other natural chemicals which were able to control diseases, we brought them in agriculture to try to reduce loss of crops to pesticides and to diseases. So over a long time, generally the natural world, the biotic part of the environment, that's plants and animals, they have been evolving. That's inclusive of the crops. So from the past up to today, using the tools which were recently discovered, like something like CRISPR. CRISPR is a biotechnology tool that's able to read the genetic structure of an animal or of a plant. So when we discovered there's such complicated gene recombinant technologies, it is now possible to read what has happened at the genetic level, at the molecular level, since the beginning. We appreciate some countries have contributed more when it comes into storage of seeds or the germplasm. I don't think in Kenya we have any germplasm where we are able to get plant materials of the past, but in some countries they have those materials. So wherever these materials are possible, possibly can be found, scientists are able to compare the genetic structure of the plants in the field now and the ones which grew many years ago. So the research is showing that there is a lot of change in topology of those trees. When we draw that genetic structure, we found that there is a lot of deletions, there is a lot of duplication. The plants are able to adapt the changes in the environment based on their genetic material. So when climate changes, the plant is able to sense that, and then because all the plant activities are controlled at the molecular level, some changes in the environment will require duplication of some genes in the plant. Others will require deletion of some genes in the plant. For the species which are not able to achieve this, then they will be eliminated by the survival for the fittest or the natural selection. So when things look like this, since the beginning, where we can track the changes of the climate changes in quotes, the one we talk about is different from the one I'm talking about. For those who study geological epochs, or they are also climatic, you realize, like in Pleistocene, the climate was completely different. It's like an ice age. That's many years ago. Then before we reach Oligocene, many other hundreds of years, you find that it's a very long span, and the change was gradual. Now scientists have discovered just some years ago, like the epoch which we are living today, it is called Anthropocene, where the changes in the climate are not natural, but they emanate from anthropogenic source, that is human beings. It was just discovered that the level of carbon in the atmosphere is beyond normal. Even if we were to stop producing more carbon emissions, already we have enough which will be able to change the climate to the worst. When they project future climates, for instance, in East Africa, they show that after some few years, in major mountains in Africa and in East Africa, the ice will be nowhere to be found. When they check the sea levels are increasing every time. When they check on the frequency of seasons, the rainfall, it is very stochastic. It's not possible to predict. And the areas which were dry, they are now becoming even more drier. The ones which were wet, they are now becoming more wet, like flooding. In the Anthropocene, the change is not gradual. It is very spontaneous, very fast, such that the clock, the genetic clock, the molecular clock in plants and in animals, plants involve our crops, they are not able to catch up with this rapid change which has happened in the Anthropocene. So for the countries which invest in research, what they did is that they were able to come up with institutes. They were able to fund researchers to try to study the profiles, the genetic profiles of their crops, because they realized that the produce is growing low. So what researchers have been doing over years is that they have been profiling all the genetic and DNA materials of plants and crops, and then they have been able to link some characteristics of these plants to specific genes or group of genes. And because they have discovered some DNA recombinant technologies, now it is possible, once you know which gene is responsible for what factor, it is possible to enhance or to silence that gene, giving that plant species or crop species or variety an upper hand when it comes to that specific factor. For example, if it is in a dry area like Turkana, the scientists can check on the genetic map of the maize varieties we have in Kenya, and then they can check which genes are controlling this specific factor, and then they can amplify that part of the sequence, and then we can come up with the maize which is GMO now, which can be able to be grown in Turkana. All the characteristics of all the phenotypic nature of the crops are controlled within the genes. So the discussion now which we should be having in Kenya is how will the government fund research to our scientists so that they may be able to do such kind of studies. But what we hear is completely different. Remember, when these products, whatever we are calling the GMOs, they are patented. They have been patented by their owners, so they are properties. If a researcher in Kenya comes up with a GMO for rice, for instance, which can grow in Machakos, then that will be his product, and then the government now can fund to upscale this. So it is with this kind of history, it is possible to appreciate what's happening. Some countries have now moved from GMOs, and they are discussing what we call transgenic organisms. These are organisms which odd, a foreign gene, because scientists also realized that some of the plants which were remained in the forest during the domestication, they have some good genes for some factors which scientists could be interested in. So these genes could be brought in and give our crops the upper hand of survival. And these are that there are many other advancement these things. So my comment on this debate is that such debate should be taken out of political platforms. Let us have debates and talks in conferences with farmers. Let the government fund researchers so that we can have an independent body which is running these things. Otherwise, it's not a political thing like many seem to think. So I thought it is very important to just share this. I just gave it orally. If you want to learn more about these things, you can explore it just like you study other things. So that's it. That's the end. I will not continue up to there. You have a good night and a good day. Remember to subscribe if you did not subscribed, and you'll be able to get our videos in the future. Thank you. Bye.